Hello, welcome to the Academic Adjustments and Course Modification Training for the Student Disability Resource Center. In our agenda, we will do a brief overview of Student Disability Resource Center's mission, an overview of Section 504 and Title II, the services available to students with disabilities, how to apply and register for services, the procedure for requesting academic adjustments and course modifications, the procedure for requesting due date extension on assignments, an interactive process regarding denial of requests, important information to know, a brief review of handouts that we have in our office, and then any questions, comments, and concerns, we will have a contact page at the end of our training. The mission of Student Disability Resource Center's program is to make all of the university's educational, cultural, social, and physical facilities and programs available to students with disabilities through the provision of reasonable accommodations. The program serves as a centralized source of information for students with disabilities and those who work with disabilities in the enhancement of their academic, career, and personal development. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and its implementing regulation prohibit discrimination on the basis of disability in programs and activities operated by recipients of federal financial assistance. Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, as amended by the Amendments Act of 2008 and its implementing regulation, prohibit discrimination on the basis of disability by public entities. As stated on the slide, the ADAAA defines an individual with a disability as one who has a mental or physical impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, a record of such an impairment, or being regarded as having such an impairment. The university receives federal funding from the Department of Education and is a public education system. Therefore, it is a subject to the requirements of Section 504, Title II, and their implementing regulations. The Section 504 regulations provide that no qualified individual with a disability shall, on the basis of disability, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be otherwise subjected to discrimination under any post-secondary education program of a recipient. The Title II regulations contain a similar prohibition applicable to public post-secondary educational institutions. The Section 504 regulations require recipient colleges and universities to make modifications to their academic requirements that are necessary to ensure that such requirements do not discriminate or have the effect of discriminating against qualified individuals with disabilities. Modifications may include changes in the length of time permitted for the completion of degree requirements, substitution of specific required courses, and adaptation of the manner in which courses are conducted. However, academic requirements that recipient colleges and universities can demonstrate are essential to the program of instruction being pursued or to any directly related licensing requirement will not be regarded as discriminatory. Under the Title II regulations, public colleges and universities may not afford a qualified individual with a disability opportunities that are not equal to those afforded to others, and may not provide aids, benefits, or services that are not as effective in affording equal opportunity to obtain the same result, to gain the same benefit, or to reach the same level of achievement as that provided to others. Public colleges and universities must make reasonable modifications in policies, practices, or procedures when necessary to avoid discrimination on the basis of disability, unless doing so would fundamentally alter the nature of the service, program, or activity. Section 35 provides that Title II regulation shall not be construed to permit a lesser standard than is established by the Section 504 regulations. The Office for Civil Rights, which enforces Section 504 and Title II, interprets the Title II regulations to require public colleges and universities to provide necessary academic adjustments to the same extent as is required under the Section 504 regulations. As previously discussed, federal law requires universities to make modifications to their academic requirements that are necessary to ensure that such requirements do not discriminate against students with disabilities. Modifications may include changes in the length of time permitted for the completion of degree requirements, substitution of specific required courses, adapting how courses are conducted, and additional time on assignments. The slide also lists other services available to students with disabilities, such as admission assistance, disability management counseling, priority registration, alternate test site and test proctoring, assistive technology, CSUDH parking fee waiver if eligible, sign language interpreters, course modification, academic adjustments, and course assignment extension. While faculty may provide academic adjustments for students in general, i.e., a request to turn in an assignment late due to acute illness, all students seeking accommodations because of a disability will be referred by the faculty to the Student Disability Resource Center. Student registration with SdRC is required prior to seeking any accommodation. To register with SdRC, students must: number 1, complete the new student application on the SdRC online portal. The link is https://hood.accessiblelearning.com/s-csudh/. Students may also complete this application at the SdRC office. Students must also provide medical documentation, including verification of disability. Students may upload their medical documentation on the SdRC online portal after completing the application, or they may provide the documentation to the SdRC office, which will upload the documents for students. SdRC will review the student's new student application and medical documentation. If the documentation is incomplete, SdRC will follow up with the student regarding the required paperwork. If the documentation is complete, SdRC will contact the student to schedule an intake and orientation. Meetings with SdRC, including the intake and orientation and subsequent meetings with a Disability Management Advisor, a DMA, typically occur in person at the SdRC office, but can take place electronically, i.e., by phone or video conference, if necessary to accommodate a student with a disability. The second step is a new student intake and orientation with the SdRC specialist. During the intake and orientation, the student and an SdRC specialist will engage in an interactive process to identify educational limitations, review student requests for accommodations, and determine appropriate accommodations based on the student's disability and individual needs. Upon specialist recommendation and student consent, a faculty notification of accommodations letter will be prepared notifying the student's instructors that the student is receiving services through SdRC. This letter will be emailed to faculty regardless of class type, and the students will receive an electronic copy of what is sent to the faculty. If students would like to receive a hard copy, they can access their letters in PDF format and print them through their online portal. While the specialist can authorize accommodations, there are some accommodations that may require an appointment with a Disability Management Advisor. For instance, if during the intake and orientation a student requests extended time on assignments, the specialist will refer the student to a Disability Management Advisor to initiate the process for requesting extension on assignments. Step number 3, we have already alluded to the third step in this process, which involves as needed follow-up appointments with a Disability Management Advisor. Each student registered at SdRC will have a disability management advisor who will work with the student throughout his or her time at CSU Dominguez Hills. Like a specialist, the DMA is able to provide a student with accommodations through an interactive process. However, certain types of accommodations, including extension on assignments, are typically only provided by a DMA after an interactive process with the student. We will discuss this in greater detail on the next slide. Step 4 is that student requests for accommodations are made every semester. SdRC acknowledges that due to the nature of a student's disability, the student may seek an academic adjustment or course modification. SdRC strongly encourages students to notify SdRC as early as possible. Disability management advising is an interactive process between a student and SdRC to identify educational limitations, review student requests for accommodations, and determine appropriate accommodations based on the student's disability and individual needs. We will now discuss two types of academic adjustments or course modifications. The first is testing accommodations. A student's request for a testing accommodation will be considered through an interactive process. If SdRC authorizes testing accommodations, then SdRC will contact the faculty with a notification letter that has further instructions for faculty to fill out in regards to their proctoring instructions for all exams. This online form is called Testing Agreement. Student will be responsible for submitting the request via online portal at least 5 business days in advance of scheduled exam in order for SdRC to make proper testing arrangements. The second academic adjustment we will discuss is a student's request for extensions on due dates for assignments. There is a specific process for requesting an extension for assignments. Where appropriate, a student may be provided an accommodation of an extension on a due date for one or more class assignments. The process for seeking such accommodation is the student meets with the Disability Management Advisor, a DMA, to request an extension on assignments. This meeting may take place upon enrollment in classes or during the semester. If the student is aware of upcoming assignments that may require an extension, i.e., when assignments are listed in the syllabus, the student and DMA complete the Request for Class Assignment Extension form together. A student may submit more than one Request for Class Assignment Extension form in each class each semester, i.e., when an assignment or its due date is unknown at the time of the first request. When completing the Request for Class Assignment Extension form, the student and DMA will engage in an interactive process to discuss the student's functional limitations, current level of functioning in the educational setting, and appropriate accommodations for the student based on the student's disability and individual needs. When the Request for Class Assignment Extension form is completed in its entirety, the SdRC team reviews each request with adequate and thorough consideration. SdRC review includes outreach to the relevant instructor regarding the academic requirements of the course. If the form is not completed in its entirety, then SdRC contacts the student to complete the form. No request will be considered until the form is completed, which may occur at the start of or during the semester. Here is a screenshot of the Request for Class Assignment Extension form, which a student and disability management advisor complete together through an interactive process. The form details the student, disability, request for extension, including the original due date and requested due date, the relationship between the disability and the accommodation for extra time on assignments, and more. SdRC will review each student request for an extension within 2 business days of receipt of a completed Request for Class Assignment Extension form. As previously stated, this review includes SdRC communicating with the relevant instructor regarding the academic requirements of the course, SdRC and the instructor may also discuss how late work policies or assignment project deadlines can be modified for the specific course. The SdRC team's recommendation will be provided to the SdRC director, who makes the ultimate determination regarding a student's request for a class assignment extension. Upon approval, SdRC will email the student and any relevant instructor with the details of the approved extension, including guidelines for the specific amount of extended time or modified due dates for the student. For instance, the accommodations may cover all assignments, i.e., 2 extra days for each assignment, or may address only a single assignment, i.e., the final paper is due on a particular date. Instructors are not expected to provide extension accommodations retroactively, such as when the student registers with SdRC later in the term. During the course of the semester, SdRC encourages the student to email the instructor with a copy to SdRC to remind the instructor of the approved extension before the assignment is due. If a student's request for an academic adjustment course modification is denied, then SdRC will schedule an appointment for the student to meet with the SdRC director to review the request. If the student does not agree with the SdRC's director's decision, then the student may schedule an appointment with the CSUDH Dean of Students as an appeal of the decision. Important information about academic adjustments. Make requests through SdRC. Before a student discusses accommodations with faculty, the student should already have submitted documentation to SdRC. Faculty members are not expected to evaluate disability documentation. By law, they are not required nor advised to provide accommodations unless the student has submitted the necessary paperwork to the SdRC office. SdRC is the university's official entity charged with receiving student requests for accommodations or modifications. All university-sanctioned accommodations are to be authorized by the SdRC office. All other accommodations, i.e., those not authorized by SdRC, may not be appropriate or consistent with the SdRC practices or compliant with the law. There are some limits on accommodations. In providing an academic adjustment, the university is not required to lower or substantially modify essential requirements or modify academic requirements directly related to licensing requirements. For example, although the university may be required to provide extended testing time, it is not required to change the substantive content of the test. In addition, the university does not have to make adjustments that would fundamentally alter the nature of a service, program, or activity, or that would result in an undue financial or administrative burden on the institution. Finally, the university does not have to provide personal attendance, individually prescribed devices, readers for personal use or study, or other devices or services of a personal nature, such as tutoring and typing. Here are some resources and handouts we have available in our office. We have a student handbook, our pamphlet, and an assistive technology brochure. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you may contact our office via email at dss@csudh.edu or phone by 310-243-3660 or stop by our office located in Welch Hall D180. Thank you for your time. This concludes the Student Disability Resource Center presentation on academic adjustments and course modifications.